There are a number of ways to become an utterly unstoppable tank in Cyberpunk 2077, whether it be causing explosive chaos with shotguns or gorilla fisting your way with ease through stacked bodybuilders of the Animals clan. This game does not hold back when it comes to inflicting bloody gratuitous violence onto waves of foes. However, if you ask me, there's one type of weapon, well, okay, two types, technically, which pack enough firepower, range, and sizable clips to allow one to simply stand there and unload an ungodly amount of lead into enemy groups. Light machine guns and one heavy machine gun are by no means the most numerous weapons in this game. In fact, when the game dropped back in 2020, it featured one LMG and one HMG. A second LMG was added in patch 1.6, but even still, we are faced with a sadly sparse pool of heavy weaponry to choose from. Even still, since I'm determined to break down and rank every single weapon type in this game from worst to best, I will be today analysing each of these outrageously powerful guns in a nice amount of detail, weighing up their pros and cons before deciding once and for all which is best. Let's get into it. As always, a quick overview on the build I'll be using when testing out each of these weapons, providing you with the context to understand my exact power level and how it may differ from yours. As machine guns are directly tied to the Annihilation perk tree, we'll be speccing 20 points into the body attribute and buying all the perks from this section. Second, we'll be speccing 18 points as always into tech, though granted in this instance there aren't actually any legendary guns we need to craft. Still, there are some nice ricochet perks in the engineering skill tree which we'll also want to be buying up. Ricochet is a hugely beneficial aspect of LMGs, and I can't wait to show you just how powerful this part of the weapons can be. Finally, I've sunk 18 points into Cool in order to take advantage of cold blood and fulfilling the role of a tank to an even further degree. I'm also using Berserk here to reduce weapon recoil and sway, as well as cyberware like the micro rotors, which help increase our skill with ranged weapons. Good, now that we've got that cleared up, let's get on to all three of the guns. Down in third place is the Militech Mk.31 Heavy Machine Gun. It's a classic staple of shooting games for one to be able to rip a heavy machine gun from its turret and temporarily use it as a portable weapon. Doing so is normally only possible because of the immensely overpowered beast that your character happens to be. Master Chief springs to mind. In Cyberpunk though, there's even a bit of context as to why this never should have been possible, claiming that the design never factored in the notion that even somebody heavily chromed up would be able to operate an unturreted version of this weapon. To quote Jeff Goldblum, however, life found a way. Though be warned, ripping this thing off does, as you would expect, inflict a tremendous movement penalty on the player, which can be slowly negated by speccing more attributes into body. Equally, we can still jump or double jump whilst holding this thing, which is certainly a plus, though this weapon cannot be stored in our inventory and will be dropped upon switching. It is, for all intents and purposes, nothing but a temporary weapon which can't be modified in any way. Upon picking one of these up, you will have 300 sweet rounds before your time is up, and you have to find another one. Reloading with this gun isn't possible, but I found that wasn't a problem. Even with ginormous enemy bases like the Arasaka Industrial Park and the Wraith Camp, 300 rounds was just about enough to take out everyone with extreme prejudice. Time your shots carefully, don't overheat the thing, and beyond that, just enjoy inflicting mass carnage. Indeed, I'd go so far as to say that this is the most violent gun in the game, literally eviscerating foes into a pile of flailing limbs and blood. Nice. It also has very little recoil, which makes no sense to me, but I ain't gonna complain. And I must say, I don't think I've had an easier time taking on either of these two bases, like, ever. And I don't know if you've seen my other videos, but they kinda involve assaulting these two with different guns a lot. So why then is this down at number 3, it being so powerful and all? Well, my main issue with this weapon is its scarcity. The fact that we can't store it means that every time we want to use one of these, we have to go out of our way to source one. With only a few boss types in the game carrying these things around, our best bet is therefore turrets. I'd personally recommend sourcing them from this little base down in the Badlands, for the fact that it has 2 to rip off and use at your leisure. But honestly, that kind of prep work and fast traveling before taking on combat is a massive pain and an unsustainable way to play. Factor in the lack of reloading, the movement penalty, and the inability to ricochet bullets, which I think is sad, and you're looking at a weapon which serves far better as the occasional treat rather than a long-time addition to the arsenal of any build, which in fairness is exactly what this gun is designed to be. Very cumbersome, very rare, but extremely powerful. The slightly worse of the two LMGs in my opinion is the Midnight Arms MA70 HB LMG. With 70 round clips, the ability to install a scope and mods, along with a 10 body requirement to fully utilize, this is a versatile gun with a lot of firepower and punch. Being a new addition to the game from 1.6 however, it is, just like the rest of those guns, a bit of a pain when it comes to legendary editions. With no crafting specs and a completely randomized method of acquisition, finding even an epic tier variant of this thing is not the easiest task, and I had to explore and refresh a number of vendor stores before finally acquiring this one from the weapon vendor in Japantown. If anybody has found a legendary for this gun, then please let everyone know where you found it down in the comments. Now, whilst not quite as powerful as the Militech heavy machine gun, I'd argue that this weapon, bullet for bullet, is the more powerful of the two LMGs. However, due to the smaller clip size, slower reload, and reduced rate of fire, this gun has a lower DPS than its counterpart. Although, to be honest, both are perfectly adept at doing the job of making you an utterly unstoppable walking bullet sprayer. Firing this against a wall, we can see a fair amount of upwards recoil, whilst horizontally, this thing stays pretty steady. This makes it awesome as a ricochet gun, as it's reasonably easy to keep our ricochet targets highlighted green, thus getting those rebound bullseye style shots on them for increased damage. Seriously, ricochet is such a fun addition to this game, and I can't wait to construct a full bullseye build which leans completely into this satisfying tactic. Whilst this is an awesome looking and efficient LMG, however, there is one which in my opinion is greater still. Despite the numerous competitors featured in this video, I ultimately decided to place this one at the top. The M2067 Defender sports 100 rounds per clip, the similar ability to install a scope, and can also be acquired much more easily at legendary tier. The weapon vendor in Kabuki will sell you one for 65,000 eddies, though I'll do you one better than that. The Cyberpunk sighting, Ticket to the Major Leagues, about here on the map, involves us facing down Alec Johnson, who will drop a modified epic variant of this gun which reduces vertical recoil whilst aiming, the ginormous difference of which you can see on screen right now. Sure, this thing won't quite be as powerful as the legendary tier, though I'd argue that in many situations, this version will be easier for consistent headshots, thus eliminating enemies much more quickly and with less bullets. Equally, for those earlier on in their playthrough, this early crime activity in Watson pits us against a man named Barry Alcan, a potential reference to the fastest man alive, Barry Allen, though to be honest, not much else about this gig seems to lean into that further. The guy even looks more like a berserker than a Sandevistan user. From Barry's corpse, we can loot the rare crafting spec for this gun, and with a few points into tech, we can craft it, using the True Craftsman perk. Equally, it's carried by members of law enforcement a fair bit, and could also be picked up from one of them, with a little luck. Having this gun in early game, or indeed later, means very few fools would be wise to mess with you, seeing as you now, hold the firepower of an entire small army. This gun is quick firing with a reasonably fast reload for its size, not to mention a larger clip. Weaker than the MA70? I suppose, though the added relentlessness more than makes up for that in my eyes. It has a fair amount of upwards recoil with the base version and a tiny amount of horizontal, again making that modified variant incredibly freaking powerful and welcome. What's more, just like the previous LMG, this thing's ricochet is insanely fast and lucrative. I'd recommend buying up the Draw the Line perk if you plan on using this much, since you can see the bullet trajectory ahead of time. Again though, you're going to want a decent body build to properly use this, as 10 body is a minimum requirement to not experience massive recoil and annoying reductions in varying stats. That being said, factoring Gorilla Arms into your build can circumvent this entry point, as they themselves can mitigate body point requirements. Ultimately, I found my brief dip into testing LMGs to be a lot more of a viable way to play than I expected, and I'm only sad that there aren't more options for those wanting to play a Terminator build like this. Literally, 2 guns isn't enough even to fill the 3 weapon slots the game gives you, and whilst throwing shotguns into a build like this would likely be the better alternative anyway, I do hope that Phantom Liberty adds a wider range to the LMG pool when it releases. Whilst a gun like this would basically turn the game into click and kill mode, I think a smart LMG would just be something else. Perhaps even something similar to the Divided We Stand AR, with stray bullets exploding into clouds of poison, or perhaps electrical shockwaves. But let me know what you think. Are LMGs an overpowered tank weapon which ought to stay rare as they are, or do you also see this as a mine of untapped heavy weaponry potential? Also, let me know down in the comments your favourite of these 3 guns and why. As always, likes are a great help in this video's promotion, and if you haven't already, then do hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on my ever-growing library of Cyberpunk content. From rankings, builds, tips, and lore, I aim to release 2 new videos a week covering Cyberpunk, as well as eventually branching out to other RPGs like Hogwarts Legacy and Starfield. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this one. I'm Bram, and I'll see you very soon in another video.